Hey everyone, welcome to the channel where I share creepy and scary stories that will give you chills. If you love horror and spooky tales, make sure to subscribe and join me every week for a new story. Let's get into the dark side together. Rainfall hit the windshield in rhythmic slaps, drumming like the steady ticking of a death watch beetle. The city of Dover Heights bled shadows beneath the amber streetlights, a place stitched together with wet concrete, forgotten dreams, and the slow rot of decay. At 3:14 a.m., the streets were nearly silent, save for the occasional honk in the distance, the low hum of neon signs, and the occasional scream muffled by brick and time. Detective Travis Kincaid sat hunched in the front seat of his sedan, fingers clutching the steering wheel though he hadn't moved for over 20 minutes. The body was inside, waiting, female, young, another in a growing line of victims who had no reason to die, but did anyway. The killer left no prints. No DNA, just a note, handwritten, taped to the mouth. His mouth twitched, not at the horror. He was long past reacting to blood. But something deeper stirred in him tonight, like an itch in the base of the skull, a whisper, a memory that wouldn't fully form. He opened the car door slowly, letting the rain wet his shoes, and walked into the apartment complex where the girl had died. The air inside was damp, metallic. The kind of place where mold and sin bred in equal measure. The uniformed officer at the stairwell nodded stiffly. Kincaid, apartment 308. It's bad. Bad didn't begin to describe it. The girl was splayed across the couch, her limbs draped over the edges like a broken doll. Eyes wide, mouth gagged with surgical tape. The blood hadn't congealed yet. It glistened like black ink in the low light. Travis crouched beside the couch. The note on her mouth read, in blocky scrawl, "You look just like her." Her? Who was her? Kincaid turned to the room. No sign of forced entry. No struggle. A single cigarette in an ashtray, barely burned down. The girl had let the killer in, or hadn't seen him coming. The whisper came again, a soft voice, like someone speaking from inside a well. "You've seen this before." He flinched, standing too quickly. The room tilted slightly. His hand went to his temple. Another headache. They came more often now. Flashes of light, bursts of emotion, nausea. A second voice now. Darker, deeper. This isn't the first. Not by a long shot. He turned sharply, eyes sweeping the room. Empty. Only the girl, the officer outside, and nothing. He scribbled notes into a small leather-bound book, then tore the page out and threw it away. 3 days later, another body. Male this time. Same MO, same message, but this one said. He screamed like a pig. Kincaid vomited in the alley after leaving the scene. This wasn't just murder. This was personal. The killer wasn't choosing random people. They were all somehow linked. He just didn't know how yet. He sat at his desk late that night, files spread before him like tarot cards. Coffee cold. Cigarette burned down to the filter. He stared at the crime scene photos until the faces began to blur. His eyes closed for only a second, but when he opened them, the office lights were off. The photos were arranged differently, and in the mirror across the room, his own face was smiling back at him. But he wasn't smiling, but his lips were frozen, his jaw clenched. He hadn't moved, and yet the man in the reflection grinned with such a calm menace that Travis staggered back, knocking over the chair behind him. The crash echoed through the station, but when he blinked again, the mirror was just a mirror. His own face, weary and pale, stared back, as if mocking his unraveling mind. He didn't mention it to anyone. Not the chief. Not his partner, who hadn't shown up in days. Not even his therapist, whom he hadn't seen in over 6 months. Instead, he buried himself in the case files, convinced that the killer's pattern, if there was one, would emerge if he just stared long enough. Sleep became a distant memory. The days blurred into each other. Coffee turned to whiskey. His right hand shook constantly, so he taught himself to write left-handed in the margins of the folders. That's when he noticed something strange. There were notes he didn't remember writing. They were in his handwriting, mostly, but they felt foreign, disjointed, sharp. She lied. He begged. "You watched." He flipped through page after page, each more chaotic than the last, until one note stopped his heart cold. I cleaned the knife. Rain again. Endless rain. It was as if the sky was grieving for Dover Heights, weeping in long sheets over rooftops, gutters, bodies. Travis found himself standing in front of apartment 614. Not a crime scene. Not yet. The building was old. Paint peeling like sunburnt skin, a roach skittering under the door as he approached. He didn't know why he was here. His last conscious memory was sitting at his desk, scribbling notes. Now he stood with a key in his hand. This key, it slid into the lock effortlessly. Inside, the apartment was clean. Too clean. The kind of clean that screamed guilt. The walls were bare, the furniture sparse. A single couch, a single lamp, a closet that smelled faintly of bleach. And in the corner of the room, on a small end table, was an item that didn't belong. A bloody necktie. His own necktie. His breath caught in his throat. His knees buckled. He didn't remember ever being here. The dream came that night, as they always did. Only this time it was clearer. A hallway. Endless. Doors on both sides. All closed, save one at the far end. He walked toward it, compelled by something ancient and hungry. The closer he came, the louder the whispering became. Two voices, arguing, one pleading, one laughing. He reached for the handle. Inside was a man with his back turned. Dark coat, familiar posture. "Who are you?" Travis asked. The man turned. It was himself, but younger, smiling, eyes dark, gleaming with cruelty. "Don't you remember?" The figure said. "We started this together." And then he woke up, screaming. The next morning, a third body was found. This time, the killer left behind something new. A photo. It showed Travis, standing outside apartment 614, holding a key. The photo had been taken the night before, and now there was a message scrawled in red ink on the back. Almost home. Home wasn't a place anymore. Not for Travis. It was a feeling, a memory, maybe, that kept slipping further away each time he tried to reach for it. The house he slept in wasn't his. The bed didn't feel right. Even the scent of his pillow betrayed him. Lavender, not cedar, not what he remembered. He sat at his kitchen table with the photo in front of him, taken from across the street. Angled too perfect to be an accident. He'd been watched, followed. But by who? By what? There was only one person he could call, Dr. Elsa Moran. She hadn't heard from him in months, but when he asked for an emergency appointment, she said yes without hesitation. Her office was warm, wood-paneled, lined with books that smelled of dry paper and old secrets. Travis sat stiffly in the leather chair across from her, fidgeting with the hem of his sleeve. "You said it was urgent," she prompted gently. He hesitated. "I'm losing time, hours at a time, waking up in strange places, finding things." "What kind of things?" "Evidence," he said. "Ties to murders I'm investigating. Things I don't remember touching, but they're mine." She watched him carefully, pen still. "And these murders, do they follow a pattern?" He nodded slowly. "Brutal, precise, personal. But that's not the worst part." "What's the worst part, Travis?" He swallowed. The words scraped on the way up. "I think someone's watching me, taking pictures, leaving notes. I think they want me to remember something I've forgotten." There was a pause. Then Dr. Moran leaned forward slightly. "Have you considered the possibility that the person doing this might be you?" He didn't answer. He couldn't, because in that moment, something shifted in the room, like a cold breath on the back of his neck. And from the corner of his eye, in the dark reflection of the window pane, he saw himself grinning. That night, he returned to his apartment. There was blood on his bathroom sink. Not old, fresh, still wet. No cuts on his body. He pulled open the medicine cabinet, and behind the Advil bottle, taped to the mirror, was a knife, a small, curved blade, surgical, clean except for a thin smear of red along the edge. Taped beneath it, another note: "We did good tonight." His screams echoed to the walls of his apartment, but no one in Dover Heights ever called the cops. Not for that kind of noise. Not anymore. The rain outside kept falling. Inside, Travis Kincaid curled up on his bathroom floor, the note still in his hand, the knife gleaming beside him. He didn't sleep. He couldn't, because every time he closed his eyes, he saw himself. Killing, that's what he saw, over and over again, in his dreams, if they could still be called dreams. Faces blurred by fear, mouths open in silent screams, blood cascading like a black waterfall in slow motion. Every night the same, yet every time a new detail slipped in, a knife in his hand, a reflection that didn't match, laughter that didn't belong to him. Travis no longer trusted sleep, or mirrors, or even his own handwriting. The next morning, he awoke with dirt under his fingernails. No memory, just dirt, and a photo of another woman, this time pinned to his refrigerator with a magnet. She was smiling. On the back, in that same red ink, "She won't be missed." The woman in the photo was found dead that afternoon, strangled, a fourth victim. There were no suspects, except maybe Travis, but no one suspected him. Not yet. He stood at the crime scene, surrounded by yellow tape, the camera flashes, the whispers. Everyone looked to him for answers. But how do you solve a crime you might have committed? That night, Travis recorded himself. He set up a camera in his bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, spoke directly to the lens. If you're watching this, it means I've lost another night. It means I'm not alone in here. Not anymore. I don't know who you are, but you know me. You walk around in my skin. You touch things that I don't remember. You leave blood on my sink. His eyes narrowed. If I find you, I swear to God, I'll kill you. He hit record again, then laid down and waited for sleep to take him. When he woke up, the camera was broken, smashed into the floor, lens cracked, memory card missing, and there was blood on the sheets. A name was scrawled on the wall in what looked like lipstick, but he knew better. It wasn't lipstick. It was human blood. Devin Blackwood. He didn't know the name. Not yet, but he would. Devin Blackwood was a therapist, specialized in dissociative identity disorder. She had a private practice in the east side of Dover Heights. She also hadn't shown up for work that day. Travis drove there on instinct. He told himself it was to warn her. But the second he knocked on her door, a wave of nausea rolled through his stomach. His palms were sweaty. He felt something wrong, like déjà vu, but worse, like memory denial. No one answered, so he broke in. Inside, silence, stillness, and then the sound of a slow, dragging breath from the back room. He pulled his gun, heart pounding in his ears, and crept down the hall. The bedroom door was ajar. He pushed it open. There she was, Devin Blackwood, alive, barely, tied to a chair, face bloodied, lips split, breathing shallow. She looked up at him with wide, terrified eyes, and whispered, "It's you." His blood turned to ice. "No," he said, shaking his head. "No, I didn't." But she was already unconscious. He called it in, reported it anonymously, then disappeared. Back at his apartment, a note waited for him, taped to his bathroom mirror. Simple, clear, she wasn't supposed to live. Travis stared at the message for what felt like an eternity. Then he turned, faced his reflection, and smiled. This time, it was him smiling, and that terrified him more than anything. It was possible now. Memories weren't safe. Reality wasn't trustworthy. Not even his own voice belonged entirely to him anymore. There were moments, tiny gaps in time, where he'd hear himself speaking and not recognize the tone, the cadence, like someone else had borrowed his vocal cords. The voice in his head had grown bolder. It no longer whispered. Now it conversed. "You did good, Travis. You're cleaning the streets, like you always wanted." He sat alone in his apartment, the curtains drawn, every light on. His phone was off, gun on the table, knife under the pillow. He hadn't slept in 2 nights. Not since Devin Blackwood. She had survived, and that meant she remembered. He needed to know what she saw, but she was under police protection now, guarded, unreachable, unless he used his badge. He stared at it, shiny gold, honest, and hated it because the badge didn't belong to him anymore. He wasn't just a detective now. He was a suspect in his own case. That afternoon, he visited the department's records room, used the credentials to pull archive case files. Not just recent murders, but old ones, cold ones. He was looking for patterns. But what he found was worse. The killer's message, always left on the bodies, had existed years before the current murder started. Different crime scenes, different victims, same phrasing, same handwriting. One of the oldest cases was from 1997. A woman stabbed 17 times, note taped to her mouth. She looked just like her. That was 28 years ago. Travis was only a child then. A child, unless he wasn't just inheriting a madness, unless he'd been living with it all along. He returned home, heart pounding, pulled out an old photo album from the closet, covered in dust. The kind of thing he hadn't touched in over a decade. As he flipped through the pages, he found something odd. A photo tucked inside, loose, black and white. It showed a young boy, maybe 6 years old, standing beside a woman with a blurred-out face. Someone had scratched over her features violently, digging into the surface of the photo with a pen or key. On the back, in a child's scrawl, "Don't let her look at me." Travis dropped the photo like it burned him. His hands trembled. Something old and cold crawled up his spine. Who was she? Why did I forget her? That night, the dreams returned. But this time, they weren't dreams. They were memories. A dark basement, a chair with leather straps, a child screaming, a woman shouting, "Don't come down here." The flash of scissors, the smell of bleach, then laughter, low, familiar. Travis awoke soaked in sweat, breathing like he'd run for miles. Someone was knocking on his door. 3 sharp raps. He grabbed his gun, approached slowly, opened it. No one. Only a single item on the floor. A child's drawing. Crude. Stick figures. One tall, one small. The tall one had a red mark where the mouth should be. And above it, a message written in red crayon. "Stop remembering." Travis sank to his knees. His world was crumbling, walls of memory collapsing all around him. But somewhere deep inside, buried beneath years of silence, a name surfaced. A name he hadn't spoken since childhood. Lena. She was his sister. Long dead, long buried. But somehow, this all led back to her. The name echoed to the hollow corridors of Travis's mind like a dying scream in an abandoned asylum. Lena. He hadn't said her name in 25 years. Hadn't dared. But now it was everywhere. Etched into the walls of his dreams. Whispered through bathroom tiles. Scratched into old furniture. Hiding behind the eyes of every victim. She was coming back. Not as a memory. As a reckoning. He needed answers. He drove for hours. Through the rain. Past the edge of Dover Heights. Past the city limits where the buildings thinned out and the woods swallowed the road. Toward a town that didn't exist on most maps anymore. Ashbridge, where he was born, where Lena died, or where she disappeared. He didn't remember the funeral, or the body, just the blood. And the basement, the old Kincaid house, still stood, dilapidated, chained shut, windows boarded. Nature had tried to reclaim it, but even the vines had stopped short of touching it, as if something inside repelled life itself. Travis broke the chain, stepped inside. The air was thick, moldy, like breathing through wet cotton. His flashlight cut through the darkness like a scalpel. Everything was untouched, frozen in time. The same faded wallpaper, same broken picture frames. And then he saw it, the door, half hidden behind a cabinet, just where he remembered, the basement door. He stood there for what felt like hours. His hand shook as it reached the knob. It turned with a reluctant click. The door groaned open. Stairs led downward, swallowed by blackness. He descended. Each step felt like diving deeper into his own mind. The smell hit him first, metallic, like old pennies and rot. The flashlight flickered. And then he saw the chair. Leather strap still intact. Stain. Crusted. Child-sized. His knees buckled. He saw flashes now. Images. Sounds. Lena screaming. His father's voice, booming. Slurred. Hold her down, Travis. It's the only way to get out. What had they done? What had he done? There was something taped to the wall behind the chair. A drawing. Faded. A stick figure with red excess for eyes. And a message. You promised not to forget me. He collapsed. Memories flooding in like a broken dam. Lena convulsing. Their mother crying. The basement locked for days. Him watching. Him helping. And then silence. He'd buried it. All of it. Split himself in two just to survive. One side became the detective. The other became the killer. He wasn't chasing a murderer. He was chasing his other half. The one born the night Lena died. He stumbled out of the house at dawn, covered in dirt, tears, blood. Not all of it his, because in his coat pocket was a new photo, fresh, a woman tied to a chair, alive. He hadn't rescued her. He had just visited her. And in red ink, only one left now. That word buzzed in his skull like a broken neon sign. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a command. Urgent. Final. The photo in his pocket hadn't been there by accident. It was placed there, which meant he had left it. Or the other had. The woman in the photo wasn't familiar, but the place behind her was. Peeling wallpaper. Cracked mirror. A red leather chair. Room 217. A long-abandoned motel on the outskirts of Dover Heights. One of the city's ghosts. A place the police wouldn't touch. Too many overdoses. Too many unmarked graves. Too much silence. He had to go there, not to save the woman, but to confront the thing that lived inside him. He didn't drive. He walked. Through the rain. The streets. Past alleyways lined with empty eyes. The city seemed to hold its breath as he passed. Even the wind made no sound, as if Dover Heights knew what he was about to do. Room 217 loomed ahead, like a tumor on the building's rotten skin. The door hung slightly ajar. The number 7 dangled, barely clinging to the frame. Travis pushed it open. The stench of bleach hit him like a wave. Inside, darkness. Then, breathing. Shallow. Panicked. In the corner of the room, she sat tied to the red chair, duct tape across her mouth. Bruised. Still alive. His flashlight trembled in his hand. He stepped forward. You're late. The voice came from behind him. Low. Familiar. His own. But not his. He turned slowly. There, in the cracked mirror above the dresser, stood himself, but not as he was now. This version was sharper. Smiling. Confident. The killer in full bloom. I kept her warm for you, the reflection said. Just like we did for Lena. You're not real, Travis muttered. The reflection tilted its head. I'm the only real thing left, Travis. You made me. I didn't make you. I buried you. You tried. The lights in the room flickered. The air thickened. His hands shook. Sweat stung his eyes. The woman in the chair moaned through her gag. Travis turned to her, hands trembling, and reached for his pocket knife. Cut the ropes. Pulled the tape from her mouth. Run, he whispered. She didn't wait. She bolted out the door, barefoot, bloodied, crying. Travis didn't follow. He turned to the mirror again. This ends tonight. The killer smiled. Yes, but not the way you think. Then the mirror shattered, without being touched. Travis fell to his knees. Blood ran from his nose. Voices screamed in his skull. 100 versions of himself, all arguing, laughing, crying, killing. And at the center of it all, Lena. She stood in the doorway now, or something that looked like her. Small, pale, face hidden by shadow. You left me, she whispered. I didn't know what they were doing, he said, choking. You watched. The room twisted around him. Reality cracked. And in that moment, Travis realized the killer wasn't just him. It was her, the part of her that never died, that he absorbed, that grew inside him like a tumor. He screamed, but no sound came out, only silence. And then, a single word whispered from the mirror's edge. Soon. The word echoed like a bell tolling in an empty cathedral. Not a warning. A countdown. Travis lay curled on the floor of room 217, blood crusting beneath his nose. The mirror's shattered remains glinting around him like jagged teeth. Outside, sirens wailed faintly. Far away, too far. He had sent her away. The woman, the last one, the only one left. But it wasn't over, because Lena hadn't left. She was waiting. Inside him, time became a spiral. He couldn't tell how long he stayed there. Minutes, hours, a lifetime. Then the door creaked open again. But no one entered. Instead, a soft hum filled the air. Childlike, familiar, a lullaby. He hadn't heard that song in 30 years. Not since. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. His breath caught. How I wonder what you are. He turned slowly. And there she stood. Lena, 7 years old. White nightgown stained at the hem. Barefoot, eyes black and endless. Her mouth didn't move, but the lullaby continued. He backed away, trembling. You're not real. She smiled, wide, cracked, and human. Neither are you anymore. Suddenly, he wasn't in the motel. He was back in the basement. The chair, the straps, the blood, his father's voice screaming, his mother sobbing, the smell of smoke, and Lena writhing, possessed, they had said, cursed, infected by something beyond human. He was 10, and he watched, and did nothing until the fire. He had set it to make it stop, to end the screaming, to end her. He thought she had died, but something had lived. You brought me out, Lena said, stepping closer. Every time you killed, every time you judged them, you let me back in. I didn't know, he whispered. You didn't want to know. The walls of the basement cracked. Flames erupted around them. Travis screamed. Lena only watched, eyes unblinking. One more, Travis, she said. One more and we'll be whole again. Suddenly he was back in the motel. The mirror was whole again. His reflection stared at him. This time it wasn't smiling. It looked afraid. On the table beside him, a gun, his gun, one bullet loaded, and a note in his own handwriting. Choose. He stared at the weapon, then at the mirror. He knew what Lena wanted. She didn't want the final kill to be someone else. She wanted it to be him. He picked up the gun, pressed the barrel to his temple, then paused. No, he whispered. Not like this. He turned the gun to the mirror instead, pulled the trigger. The glass exploded. The reflection shattered. And for the first time in years, the silence inside his head returned. He fell to the floor, sobbing, broken, but alive, or so he thought, until he saw the final note, one he hadn't written, tucked into the corner of the room. She's not in the mirror. She's behind your eyes. Eyes. They watched him from every surface now. The corners of windows, the shimmer of puddles, the backs of spoons. Everywhere he turned, his own reflection followed. But it blinked when he didn't. He couldn't close his own eyes anymore, because when he did, he saw hers. Travis had fled the motel before the police arrived. He didn't remember how, or where he ran to. He just knew he was underground now, in a tunnel, concrete walls dripping with condensation, old subway lines that had long been decommissioned. He didn't even remember walking down there. His legs ached. His mind pulsed like a dying star. His fingernails were black with dried blood, but the whispers hadn't stopped. Behind your eyes, she's looking through them. You were her doorway. He screamed into the dark until his voice cracked. His flashlight flickered once, twice, then died. Total blackness. Not metaphorical, not poetic. True void. Travis stood frozen in the dark, and something breathed right next to his ear. Open them. Suddenly light, blinding, sterile, white. He blinked and found himself in a hospital hallway. Flickering fluorescent lights, shiny floors, smell of antiseptic, except the building was empty, silent, except for the girl at the end of the hall, standing perfectly still, head down, hair wet, toes turned inward. Lena, 7 years old. Again, but something was wrong with her proportions. Her arms were just a little too long, her neck twisted slightly to the side, and her eyes weren't Lena's anymore. They were his. He backed away, but she moved with him, mirroring him exactly. Step for step, he screamed and ran through a door. He was in his childhood home again. Living room, TV playing static, no furniture, and on the screen, a grainy VHS tape. It showed a small boy kneeling beside a girl tied to a chair. The boy smiled, then picked up a knife, then looked directly at the camera and said, "Are you watching, Travis?" He turned the TV off, but the image stayed on the screen. The boy, the knife, the smile, and then, slowly, the boy's face morphed into Lena's, into his own, back and forth, over and over, until they became one. Travis collapsed, covered his face, but even in the darkness behind his hands, he could still see her eyes, because they were his now. She was inside, burrowed behind his pupils, watching the world through him, whispering thoughts that felt like his own. He clawed his face, desperate, screamed, "Get out!" No answer, only a soft giggle in his skull, then a final whisper, "You blinked." And in that moment, Travis realized the truth. He was no longer the killer. He was a vessel. That's all he was now. Not a man, not a detective, not even a killer. Just skin, bone, eyes, a doorway. The hospital dream had dissolved, but the whispers hadn't. They followed him now, even in waking life. Echoed in the hum of street lamps, in the creak of floorboards, in the gentle flap of moth wings against his window pane. Every sound twisted into her voice. "You blinked. You let me in. You brought me back." He hadn't eaten in days. His body trembled constantly. Hands shook like old paper in the wind. He looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the figure staring back. Not because it looked different, but because it looked too much like him. Perfectly like him. No human is that symmetrical. He started seeing them too. Others. People in crowds whose heads snapped toward him too fast. Smiling strangers on empty streets. Eyes too wide, too black. Some of them had her face. Others had his. But none of them blinked. He researched ancient myths. Desperate, sleep-deprived, delirious, old symbols, possessions. The idea of a psychic parasite, a mirror being, a child who dies in trauma, but whose pain is so great. Her echo attaches to the nearest soul, usually a sibling. Lena wasn't haunting him. She was inhabiting him. He found a journal in his father's old chest, beneath newspaper clippings, yellowed, crumbling. Inside, entries about Lena. She screams at night, says the shadows talk to her. She made Travis hurt the dog today, said he didn't remember it. I think there's something wrong with her eyes. They're not hers. And then we tried the fire. She didn't burn. Travis dropped the journal, backed away slowly. It all made sense now. The fire didn't kill her. It set her free, and she latched onto him. She fed on his guilt, on every murder, every scream. She grew stronger, more complete. He wasn't solving murders. He was feeding her. The final name on the list appeared that night, etched into the condensation on his bathroom mirror. Detective Ryan DeWitt, his old partner, his friend, the only person who still suspected the truth. He called him, told him to meet. An old church on the edge of town. Midnight, rain falling, just like the night Lena died. Ryan showed up, cautious, armed. "You look like hell," he said. Travis didn't answer. He couldn't, because Lena was smiling through his eyes now. Ryan reached for his gun, but Travis was faster. One shot, right between the eyes. Blood painted the altar. Ryan fell with a whisper. Travis stood shaking, tears streaming, but smiling, because he didn't pull the trigger. She did. In the silence, the rain stopped. The church lights flickered, and behind him, the stained glass shattered outward, not inward, as if something had come through. Lena was here, fully, freed, no longer needing him, only mimicking him. A new vessel would come, but not yet. She still had one final piece left to devour. Him, the word repeated like a curse in Travis's mind. Not me, not I. Him, as if he had already been reduced to something outside himself, as if he were now just a memory. He wandered the dark city, rain soaking through to his bones, shoes squelching, eyes wide, hands trembling, but still he smiled, because she was finally quiet. Lena had taken everything, his mind, his body, even his guilt, and now she was silent. Not gone, just satisfied. For now, he reached the river's edge. The old bridge loomed ahead. Black water swirled below, reflecting the dim orange haze of streetlights like smears of dying fire. He stood at the railing, wind howling, heart silent, no voices, no breathing that wasn't his, no more whispers, just the stillness of decision. He reached into his coat, pulled out his last bullet, the one he had saved. For him, he placed the barrel beneath his chin, hands steady, breathing slow, eyes closed, and for the first time in years, he felt peace. Don't blink. His finger froze, eyes open. There, reflected in the river, her, not the child, not the hallucination, not the voice, but her, Lena, tall and thin, stretched beyond human limits, skin ashen, slick like oil, his eyes, black-ringed and hollow, mouth stretched impossibly wide, a wound that smiled. She walked on the water like it was glass, each step rippling reality. Behind her, hundreds of others, men, women, children, all wearing his face. Vessels, used, hollowed, discarded. She spoke without sound. You thought it was about you? You're just the gate. The bullet in his hand melted to ash. His arms dropped. Lena raised hers. The city lights behind her flickered, dimmed, and then everything blinked. A single second passed, and he was gone. The bridge was empty. No body, no blood, no sound, only the river, still, quiet, watching. Somewhere in the city, a newborn took its first breath and didn't blink. Blink, that's all it took. One moment of weakness, one single involuntary twitch of the eye, and she was in. Somewhere in Dover Heights, a newborn blinked for the first time and didn't stop. His mother stared down, uneasy, unsure why her chest felt hollow all of a sudden. Across town, a man sitting alone in a diner blinked and saw himself sitting across from him, smiling. A teacher blinked in front of a whiteboard and forgot how to spell her name. An old man blinked and couldn't remember his wife's face. A cop blinked and shot a teenager holding a cell phone. It spread, quietly. No virus, no data breach, no curse, just memory, just guilt, just a crack in the surface of a tired mind. That's all she needed. She had learned from Travis, from the pain, from the fear, from the love, and now she didn't need to possess. She only needed to suggest. Whispers, mirrors, flashes of light at night, familiar faces that aren't quite right, a voice in your own tone, saying something you didn't mean to say. You're not you. You've never been. The city kept moving. People went to work. Children played in parks. But slowly, subtly, they began to change. They spoke less. They stared more. They blinked less. And smiled more. You'd never know she was there. Not until the dream started. Not until you wake up in someone else's memory. Not until you say something and wonder if it was really your thought. Not until you look into the mirror and the reflection smiles before you do. Somewhere, she is watching you, waiting. Blink,